So did you guys go through this file? 10th batch, 11th batch? Hi Prabhu, hi Sam.
Hi, Sunil.
Yeah. Okay. We'll wait for another 2 minutes. In between, probably. Yeah. Yeah. Few general instructions before we begin the session. Both 10th and 11th batch trainers. See, when we're talking about Incoterms, it is universal subject, whether be it with LC or not LC. This topic is very important, because this term is used as a part of our sales contract. Okay, whether be it be open account or be it be advance payment, like whatever methods of payment, understanding of this knowledge is very much essential. If it is LC, especially the one who is issuing and the beneficiary applicant should be aware of each and every terms and implications of each and every Incoterms. Now, since this is very important subject, when you browse Incoterms, you will find a lot of materials. It could be YouTube videos or PPTs or anything. Like you have plenty of materials. Only suggestion is whatever material you're trying to follow the same material for your understanding. Okay, Vidya, they're unable to access. 1 second. So throughout your preparation, only one material you follow. So since we have materials from ICC, so I suggest you to follow the same material. Now this is for somebody who already started preparing. Maybe it is a little difficult for them. So my advice is follow this chart, a kind of a retriever or kind of a refresher, and follow the book by ICC that just now I shared in the group. And this is 195 pages. If you ask me which is the most complex topic, it is Incoterms. Okay, so the possibilities are unlimited in terms of Incoterms, and they're very much essential part of LC transactions. So now first thing, as I said, follow only one set of materials. And since we have a material from the source itself, this material is provided by International Chamber of Commerce, ICC, right? ICC Incoterms, right? So we have this material. I advise you to follow this. And for my class purpose, we don't have to go in detail. I have taken very essential parts from the book. So just to give an outset or just to give an overview, I'm using this material, but otherwise the book is exhaustive. Although I don't recommend you to go through the book, at all, if you are in exporters leg or importers leg, if you want to know minute details of each and Incoterms, then it is up to you. Otherwise, you should be briefly aware of the terms and where the risk passes, who is incurring what, and then most importantly, the documentation work, etc. Okay, so we'll start with assuming people are aware of Incoterms. I'll start with this flyer. Okay, so now can anybody? Okay, so what are the things you see here from XWorks? Only XWorks alone, and they mentioned Incoterms, transport obligations. Incoterms talks about transport obligations. transport obligation, cost, and risk. So blue indicates seller's obligation, and gold indicates buyer's obligation. Green indicates mixed or shared obligations. Okay. Now, couple of things you should be noting it or you should be remembering is incoterms. First, how many incoterms are there? 11 incoterms are there. And the second point you should note and you should remember, you should make an effort to remember is, against each incoterms, like you will have something like this. Insert name, place of delivery. Okay. And see, CAP, insert name, place of destination. Okay. You should remember this against each term, because whenever we are phrasing the routing of the shipment, like place of shipment, port of loading, these informations are handy. Not only that, even in the good description, whenever we say good description and say for so and so place, if at all good description, if you're choosing incoterm, X works incoterm, beneficiaries warehouse. So that is how it is being phrased. So the first point you should remember, against each incoterm, there is a point, point of transaction. We call it as point of transaction. So insert name, place of delivery. Okay, this one you have to remember. And then here, if you see the documentation, export formalities and import formalities. Okay, see, like here under X works, export formalities are the obligations of buyer, and import formalities also are the obligations of buyer. Okay, this is second point. It could be documentation and export formalities and import formalities. Okay, this is the second point. You will have to make an effort to remember it. And then at what point, until what point, who is paying? Okay, the cost. Okay, there are a lot of points there. Like it could be the beneficiaries premises, or it could be first carrier, it could be second carrier, it could be port of loading, or it could be port of delivery, destination, until the final destination. So there are a lot of points are there. Until what point, who is paying? Okay, who is going to define? Incoterms are going to define. So the cost, who is paying cost until what place? So if you remember this, you will know the cost also. Okay, for example, here CIP, insert name, place of destination. Insert name, place of destination. If you see cost, he is paying until here. Okay, so then third thing is, first is this one, and second one is documentation, export formalities and import formalities. Third one is cost part, and fourth one is risk. At what point risk transfers from one party to another party? Here, one party to another party could be importer and exporter, or buyer or seller. Okay, so at what point risk transfers? So that also you should be making an effort to remember it. And then the last point, fifth one, is loading and unloading. Okay, because loading is also an activity and it incurs cost. So who has to bear that? It is whose responsibility, whose obligation is it to load, or for that matter, even unload. Okay, so these 5 things against each term, you try to remember it. Okay, so now let's talk in detail one by one. So basically, your retrieval point should be from this file. This you can print and keep it. And only this file you will have to remember. In practice, if you're at workstation, or if you are at a logistical counter, like if you are fixing the terms, then the books are there. Books are going to be handy and they covered in detail. So you don't have to worry to learn each and everything about each incoterm. Just know these few essential things, like 5 points, like whichever I discussed. That is good enough for CDCS perspective. Okay, so basically incoterms talks about transport obligations, costs, and risk. Okay, then from the image, now maybe like after I take you through a couple of incoterms, you will be able to understand more things by just looking at the image. Okay, that is there. And then we have 2 groups of incoterms: rules for any mode or any modes of transport, and rules for sea and inland waterway transport. Broadly categorized into two types, like one meant for any mode and second one meant for only waterway transport. Okay. So with this brief, I'll take you through slides. Let me know when you can see the screen. So you guys can see the screen?
Yes, Sunil.
Okay. So what are the Incoterms rules? Incoterms are, this is an acronym for International Commercial Terms, Incoterms, published by International Chamber of Commerce, ICC. Incoterms is series of three-letter trade terms related to common contractual sales practice. So they're making it very clear, related to common contractual sales practice. The practice could be local or international. Okay. What the Incoterms rules do? Incoterms clarify obligation or responsibility of parties to a sales transaction. So here parties to a sales transactions are namely buyer and seller locally and exporter and importer internationally. And it also talks about risk and cost. Okay. Now, like we discussed, broadly categorized into two parts: rules for any mode or any modes of transport, rules for sea and inland waterway transport. Okay. So there are total 11 Incoterms. First 7 are for any modes: Xworks, FCA, free carrier, CPT, carriage paid to, CAP, carriage and insurance paid to, DAP, delivered at place, DPU, delivered, place, unloaded, and DDP, delivery duty paid. And then under inland waterway transport, sea and waterway transport, we have FAS, that is free alongside ship, and FOB, free on board, CFR, cost and freight, CIF, cost, insurance, and freight. Okay. So what you will have to remember is, if it is X works, insert what? Free carrier insert what? Insert named place, right? Like we'll come to know the named place of delivery. Okay. And this is our interest. This is our learning and interest. We can also group into four category: E terms, F terms, C terms, and D terms, right? Like here, E terms, under E group, we have only one term, that is X works. X works, insert name place of a delivery. Okay. Under F terms, like we have three, that is mixed: FCA, FAS, and FOB. It is mixed actually, both inland, any modes are suitable for only waterway. Okay. But I'll tell you why we have to remember F term. This group, F terms, like we have FCA, FAS, and FOB. And then C terms, we have CFR, cost, freight, and then CIF, cost, insurance, and freight paid to, and CAP, carriage and insurance paid to, and CPT, carriage paid to. And then other D terms, like we have DAP, delivered at place, DPU, delivered at place, unloaded. Another one is, last one is DDP. Sorry, DDP, delivery duty paid. Okay. So why we have to remember this way means, it is always under E terms and F terms, freight collect. Okay. Freight collect, and under C terms and D terms, it is always freight prepaid. So whenever we are looking at a document, if Incoterm is either Xworks or any of these, FCA, FAS, FOB, you would see the freights are collect. Freights are to be paid. Okay. Freight collect in the sense, it has to be collected from the buyer or importer, meaning the seller and exporter are not paying it. So that is why it says freight collect for both the terms, E and F terms, freight collect. And C and D terms, it is always freight prepaid. Freight prepaid in the sense, like whoever contracting, I mean, like the seller or beneficiary or exporter, who will be paying a freight in advance, they will be paying the freight. So if at all, if you are coming across CIP, it is always in the document you see freight prepaid or freight paid. Yeah. Okay. Any doubts so far? 11 Incoterms.
Sunil, E and F
Freight
group.
prepaid means freight is being paid by seller in C
Yes,
and D,
seller.
right?
Seller, yes.
Okay, it's
Sunil, for E and F, credit collect is borne by like who? Seller or buyer?
C terms, seller, freight prepaid.
No. I'm talking about credit collect. E and F.
Sorry, freight collect. Which
Yes.
incoterms you're talking?
Like all the incoterms which are shown in this slide now. So if it is under freight collect, either buyer or seller can pay the freight, right?
No. Freight collect
Ah,
means, see, shipment sales from seller or exporter, right?
right.
Okay. And these details will be evidenced in a transport document,
Okay.
right? Freight collect or freight prepaid. So if it says freight collect means it is an instruction to the carrier to be collected from other party. Other party, obviously, it is the buyer or importer. You with me?
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah, Chetan. Okay. Freight collect means freight to be collected. Freight
Right.
is already said. Shipment is already said. Freight has to be collected. Okay. It has to be collected means obviously, from the applicant or importer or the buyer.
Okay.
So freight prepaid means freight is already paid by the seller or exporter. Yeah. Okay. We'll move on.
So then is there a chance freight prepaid by buyer?
See, that is all, see, sometimes Incoterms is FOB. Okay. Sometimes Incoterm is FOB. That means like as per the rules, Incoterms for the freight has to be collected. But there could be scenarios, they are only paying, like depending on the transaction, depending on the price advantage they have. It could be the case. But like if it is, when you're talking about the rules, if it is FOB, freight has to be collected.
Okay.
Yeah. Arrangements are different, practices are different, but we are reading the rules now. Yeah. Now this is also a little important. Maybe you must have come across in any transport document pre-carriage. Okay. Something called main carriage and on carriage. Okay. So maybe if you are seeing from the illustration, you understand like vendor or carrier, all the activities that is taking place from the place of, shipper or exporter until the port of loading, all the activities, whatever activities coming from this point to this point comes under pre-carriage. Okay. So pre-carriage means like from factory, maybe a container by truck or container by train, it happens. The movement happens from one mode or one medium, and from here they're going to unload and they're going to load from the port of loading. Okay. So whatever activities from this place, whatever transportation happening from this point to this point falls under pre-carriage. Okay. And once the goods are loaded, unboarded, okay, the main journey, that is called main carriage. Okay. Whatever transportation, whatever expenses, falling under from this point to this point, it is called main carriage. And then once they are unloaded, once they are loaded from this point, okay, whatever transportation logistical activities that is happening falls from this point to applicant's place or buyer's place or importer's place. They are termed as on carriage. Okay. Now pre-carriage means the movement that happens before the container is loaded on the ocean going vessel. They're saying ocean going vessel. It could be like some waterway also, some feeder vessel also it could be. That is what they're trying to be very careful. The movement that happens before the container is loaded on ocean going vessel. So they are all called pre-carriage. And then main carriage or carriage means the movement that happens while the container is on board the ship. Okay, once the goods are on board the ship, the movement from this point to this point, that is called main carriage. Then on carriage, the movement that happens after the container is discharged from ocean going vessel. Once the goods are discharged, like whatever movement that happens from this point to this point, it is called on carriage. Yeah, this is something it is good to know. Now, few things few typical things like how if you are looking, if you want to understand the Incoterms from exporter's point of view, this is how typically mostly export activities happens. It starts from documentation. Export, I mean, like each country will have specific documentation requirement and specific documents and specific duties to be paid, specific, requirement, legalization, embassy, foreign affairs, whatever. So this starts with the documentation, export custom, custom declaration and documentation. And then like once we are through with the documentation, then obviously, the factories will be situated in one place and the port will be at another end. So the loading, the goods are loaded onto the truck or the container, and then once the goods are loaded, the carriage takes place to the port of export. Okay. Once the truck reaches there, once the container reaches at the port of export, then unloading also have to happen. So unloading the container, unloading the goods from the truck in the port of export. So once the goods are unloaded, it is mostly like, when the vessel is going next day or 2 days, 3 days period of time, right? So until then they are stored there. And then when the vessel arrives, so they are loading. They have to load it back to the ocean going vessel. So these are the typical activities: documentation, and then loading onto the truck and carriage to the port and unloading from truck and again loading onto the vessel. Okay. Why we are talking about each? Because each is of these are an important activity and it incurs cost. Okay. One documentation, for example, if I have to talk from Bahrain, if it is required, if the documents are required to be certified by Chamber of Commerce and Embassy, each document will cost about 20,000 each paper, not the document. Like if invoice is having 2 papers, something like that, we have to pay on the basis of pages, and for something like we have to pay on the basis of the invoice value. Okay, so this is little complex. The documentation work is little complex. If you are making any mistake and if you are if you are redoing it, then again it incurs a lot of cost. Okay, not only about the documentation preparation cost, like preparation cost. If the consignment reaches at the port of discharge, and if custom clearance, like if they are not satisfied with the documentation, there is every chance goods are returned back. Okay, so that is why this phase is very important activity in logistics, and also it involves cost. So it is better we should know who has to pay what, right? And then loading. So loading, maybe we must have not think of loading charges. For our case, like even if you have to load one air conditioning unit, maybe we'll be paying like something like 1,000, 1,200 rupees for loading one air conditioning units. So imagine 100 units, 200 units, 500 units. Okay, so that is also an activity involve cost. And then carries to the port and then unloading there, because here our people will be loading it. There they have a different set of people to unload it, so we'll have to pay there. And then again loading back into the vessel, you have to pay there. And then carriage, it is a sea freight, main carriage, like we'll be paying the freight, right? So here, and then once it reaches the port, unloading charges from the vessel, and then carries to the again loading back onto the truck, and then carries to the place of destination, and import clearance, so and import duties and unloading at the place of applicant. Yeah. Okay, Subrato. Yeah, this slide. So
Yes,
typically
this one.
there are from the movement of from beneficiary's place to applicant's place, the movement takes place, right? That movement is divided into 3 parts: pre-carriage, main carriage, and on-carriage. From the place of beneficiary until the port of loading, okay, until the goods are loaded onto ocean going vessel, whatever transaction takes place, whatever transportation it takes place, it is called pre-carriage. So once the goods are loaded, when the sailing it is happening, when the goods are on board, whatever transportation that takes place, that is called main carriage. Now when the goods are unloaded from the ocean going vessel, And from this point until the place of importer, whatever transportation activities it is taking place, that is called on carriage. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Now, so these are the typical logistics inbound and outbound activities. Typical. There could be more steps, or there could be fewer steps. Yeah. Now, with this brief, I'll take you back to the incoterms. Let me know if you see when you see X works. It's visible, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, 5 points I said you should be remembering for each incoterms. Yeah, I'll make these slides available in Dropbox. The Dropbox access I will give everyone next month. Okay, after like second installment, you can access all these slides and this material in Dropbox. Okay, now Xworks. So Xworks, first point I said you to remember, insert name place of delivery. Okay, and then see, this is a consignment. Okay, this is a truck. If it is golden color means it is obligation of importer. Okay, and again the documentation, it is in golden color means it is an obligation of buyer or importer. Okay, now so Xworks means the seller deliver to the goods the buyer when it places the goods at the disposal of the buyer at the name place, typically factory or warehouse, and that name place may be or may not be seller's premises. Okay, so whenever we are using incoterms, Xworks means there should be a name place. That is where the delivery happens. That is where the risk transfers. Okay. Now, so delivery exactly happens at this place. Like assuming it is beneficiary's warehouse, and as per incoterm, Xworks beneficiary's warehouse, and the delivery happens here. Now, for delivery to occur, the seller does not need to load the goods on any collecting vehicle. Okay, nor does it need to clear the goods for export where such clearance is applicable. Okay, so they made it 3 points very clear. The delivery happens at the name place. Okay, and then for delivery to occur, the seller need not load the goods on any collecting vehicle. Nor he doesn't have to do any work, export formalities, export documentation, whatever it is. Okay, the seller need not clear the goods for export where such clearance is applicable. This rule may be used irrespective of mode or modes of transport, if any selected. Okay, this is one of the simplest incoterm. Okay, this is one of the simplest incoterm. It gives least obligation to the seller, right? Like from the previous slides we discussed, from this point it could be pre-carriage or main carriage or on carriage, the documentation work, all the costs associated with every stage is the responsibility of the buyer, right? So one point, this is the only incoterm, it gives the least obligation to the seller. Okay, any doubts for Xworks? Because if you know one incoterm, the next understanding the next incoterm is very easy, because with each incoterm one application is adding to the beneficiary. Sorry, we'll tell seller only, since like they also mentioned seller. From this incoterm onwards, each step of responsibility is increasing for seller. So any doubts here? Xworks, where the delivery happens? Someone?
Named place.
Named place.
Named place. Okay. Does beneficiary need to load the consignment on the collecting vehicle?
No.
No, sir.
No. Does beneficiary require to prepare any documents?
Nothing.
No.
Export clearance?
No obligation.
No. Okay. One more point of information I wanted to add. Maybe like when you see some packaging, right? Some biscuits or some cookies, like you must have seen export packing, right? Export packing and normal packing, like Parle-G biscuit and all, like some goods are meant for export packing, or Little Hearts export packing, right? If incoterm is because export packing is a requirement sometimes. Okay, sometimes like when it is having a larger sale period, export packing is also needed. If incoterm is X works, that export packing is also not necessary. Okay, this one additional information you'll have to remember. Okay, now, so next one is free carrier. Okay, like X works, FC also means named place of delivery. X works named place of delivery. FCA insert named place of delivery. Same, right? Okay. From the illustration, you can make it. It is loaded. Okay. And second thing is export formalities in blue color, means like export formalities by the seller, and loading is also obligation of seller. Right. So two steps, two obligations increased to seller here. X works. And now we are talking about Incoterms 2020, right? So with Incoterms 2020, there were 2 points of delivery. FCA means insert name place of delivery. That name place of delivery could be the beneficiaries or factory or seller's warehouse or somewhere, or it could be some different place. Okay, it could be like freight forwarder's place, or it could be some other place. Okay, now again you see the color. Here, blue color means if the name place is beneficiary's place.
Is anyone speaking? I can't hear you, Sunil.
Sorry, even we can't hear you.
Sorry? Okay.
You are muted, I think.
Okay. One second. Am I audible now?
Yes,
Hello?
Yes, Sunil.
Okay.
Now, yes, sir.
Yeah. So free carrier, there could be 2 place of deliveries. One, it could be seller's place, or it could be forwarder's place in beneficiary's country or exporter's country. Okay. If it is this place, beneficiary's warehouse, all beneficiary or exporter have to do is they have to load onto the collecting means of vehicle. Okay. And if it is the second place, then beneficiary has to make that carriage arrangement from this place to until the place nominated by the importer. Okay. Other things remain same. Export formalities, import formality, export formalities by exporter, import formalities by importer. Now let's read. Delivery and risk. Free carrier name place means the seller delivers to the goods to the buyer in one or other of 2 ways. Okay. First, when the name place is seller's premises, the goods are delivered when they are loaded on the means of transport arranged by the buyer. So freight is collect only. So if it is first point, when they are loaded on the means of transport arranged by the buyer. Second, when the name place is another place, the goods are delivered when having been loaded on seller's means of transport. That is why it's in blue color. Okay. When the goods, when having been loaded on the seller means of transport, they reach named place and are ready for unloading from seller's means of transport at the disposal of the carrier or any other person nominated by the buyer. Okay. So here they don't have to unload. Okay. They have to bring. Okay. They should arrive at this location. So when they arrive at this location, delivery is said to have happened. Okay. Now, for example, in first instance, insert name place is beneficiary's seller's premise, exporter's premise. Now goods are loaded here. If some damage happens, like who's responsibility? No. Well, once the goods are loaded,
Buyers.
buyer. Okay. Now, in the second point, buyer's obligation is to make the goods available at the second place. In the transit, if something happens, like whose responsibility is it?
Seller.
Seller's only, because delivery did not happen. To delivery to happen in the first scenario, they have to load. Okay, in the second scenario, they have to make it available at this place, second place. Okay. Also, one thing we have to note, the seller need not arrange for unload. Okay. That is about free carrier. In Incoterms, only goods were made available for collecting vehicle. Here, either they can load it or the beneficiary is arranging to take the goods until the second place. They don't have to unload. And export formalities on exporter and import formalities on importer. I hope you are following the difference between XWorks and FCA. Any doubts, FCA? Yeah. Okay, there is something. Yeah. So whichever of the two is chosen as the place of delivery, that place identifies where the risk transferred to the buyer and the time from which costs are on buyer's account. Like from this point, buyer's account. And again, this is for all modes. Okay. So any doubts, FCA? Yeah. Now, if you know FCA, understanding CPT is very easy.
How will we differentiate?
CPT means carriage paid to. So C terms and D terms, freight prepaid, freight paid, right? So the main carriage is on account of seller.
Hello.
Now let's see CPT. Insert name place of destination. And here, if you see insert name place of delivery. Okay, under C terms, it is insert name place of destination. Okay. And here, like it could be mixed. The truck, it is not belongs to the seller, it is not belongs to the buyer. It could be arranged. It could be sometimes the truck of the buyer itself, but seller have to pay the freight until name place of destination. Okay. Export formalities by exporter and import formalities by importer. Only one point that is adding here is the seller is paying the freight until name place of destination. Yeah. Delivery and risk under CPT. Carriage paid to means the seller delivers the goods and transfers it to the buyer by handing them over to the carrier. When they hand over the goods to the carrier, contracted by the seller. Why contracted by the seller? Because freight prepaid. So it has to be contracted by the seller or by procuring the goods so delivered. That means it's not necessary like, always the shipment has to happen from a factory or a beneficiary's place, or it could be chain of sales. I'm borrowing from one point and then I'm arranging from this point to another. So that is what they're saying, or by procuring the goods so delivered. The seller may do so by giving carrier physical possession of the goods in a manner at place appropriate to the means of transportation is used. Okay, that means when the seller hands over the goods to the courier, okay, arranged by the seller means like he will be paying the freight. Okay, that is where the risk transfers from seller to the buyer. So now also you can load. Loading is whose obligation here? Loading, seller's obligation. Seller's obligation. So the point is the delivery happens here. There are three things: delivery and transfer of risk. It is common misunderstanding that where the risk transfers, it need not be the same place. The delivery place and transfer of risk place need not be the same place. Here delivery happens, and risk transfers could be some different place that I'll explain in our next incoterms. So it is delivered here. Okay. Now he will be paying the freight until place of destination, but the risk transfers at this point. What does that mean, that risk transfers here and delivery? I mean, like we are paying freight until this place. What happens, like if something happens, if damage happens in from between this point to this point?
Insurance.
Yeah. Okay. Insurance. Who will pay insurance?
Importer. Sorry,
Sorry?
exporter. Exporter.
Buyer.
Sorry?
Buyer will pay.
Buyer has to, because
sir.
if the selected incoterms is CPT, it is not the obligation of the seller. Okay. Now it is the obligation of the buyer to see the suitable arrangement, suitable insurance. Yeah. If the parties in sales transaction wants to seller to pay for the insurance, then they should be selecting different incoterm, like CAP and CAF. Right. Delivery happens here. Okay. And the seller is paying for freight until here. If some damage happens during the voyage and he is not responsible. Okay, that's what we read here. Once the goods have been delivered to the buyer in this way, the seller does not guarantee that the goods will reach the place of destination in sound condition, in stated quantity, or indeed at all. This is because risk transfers from seller to the buyer when the goods are delivered to the buyer by handing them over to the carrier. Okay. This is where delivery happens. That is where his obligation ends. Okay. The seller must nonetheless contract for the carriage of the goods from delivery to the agreed destination. That we know, freight prepaid until this destination. Thus, for example, the goods are handed over to, okay, we don't need that example. Yeah. So this is about CPT. Where the delivery happens? Where the delivery happens under CPT?
Buyer destination.
Name place of destination.
No. Delivery. I mean, I'm asking delivery. Where the delivery happens? Where is seller is said to have delivered? Seller is said to have delivered when he hands over the goods to the carrier.
Place of destination.
No. Delivery is not happening there.
Okay.
Seller is paying the freight until place of destination. Okay. He is paying the freight here. He is paying the freight here, but he is delivering it here only. That is what I'm trying to tell you. You know, if something happens from this point to this point, once the goods are received by the first carrier, seller is said to have delivered. Okay, because at this point risk transfers when the goods are collected by the first carrier, right? That is where the risk transfers from this party to this party. Clear? Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. So remaining like export formalities by exporter and import formalities by importer. Now CAP. Yeah. Now CAP means carriage and insurance paid to. Similar, like insert name place of destination, like CPT, this is also insert name place of destination. Okay. Cost. The seller have to pay the main freight. Okay. The risk, see again, risk, though it is insurance is there, risk transfers from seller this point only. When the goods are collected by the first carrier, the good risk transfers from buyer to the seller. In addition to that, insurance from this point to the place of destination. Now, who will be paying insurance here?
Seller.
Sorry, seller is paying insurance. So if something happens, who is responsible? Insurance company is responsible. Okay. Now maybe there was a news, right? Recently, like some 3,000 cars, the cargo carrying 3,000 cars have been destroyed, right? It caught fire, right? Did you guys come across this news? Yeah. So maybe it is impossible for a seller to, bear that entire cost. Okay. They're delivered, maybe depending on the incoterm, they must have delivered. So there will be insurance premium. They must have arranged suitable insurance. Now insurance company will take care of it. It could be for the cargo or it could be for the ship also. So that is why one should know the importance of incoterm and where the delivery happens and where the risk transfers. Okay. Now, for this, carriage and insurance paid to means the seller delivers to the goods and transfers risk to the buyer by handing them over to the carrier. The seller transfers to the buyer and delivers by handing them over to the carrier, contracted by the seller. Yes, it has to be contracted by the seller because he is going to pay the freight, or by procuring the goods so delivered. The seller may do so by giving carrier physical possession of the goods in a manner and at a place appropriate to the means of transportation used. Appropriate means of transportation to be used means, like if it is railway, then obviously that is the point. I mean, like the railway tracks cannot come to until the place of factory, right? So until that place, it is the seller's obligation. Like if the first carrier is by train, once the goods are loaded onto the train bogie, that is where the risk transfers. Okay, sorry, delivery happens, not the risk transfers, the delivery happens. So basically, until now, from X works, okay, from X works, delivery point is same. Okay, in X works, he make it available. In the remaining all incoterms, he is handing over the goods to the carrier, first carrier. Okay, delivery is happening here only, if you note carefully. And then except X works, remaining all the incoterms, export formalities by the exporter and import formalities by the importer. Now CIP, okay. Once the goods have been delivered to the buyer this way, the seller does not guarantee that the goods will reach the place of final destination in sound condition, in stated quantity or indeed at all. This is because risk transfer from seller to the buyer once when the goods are delivered to the buyer by handing them over to the carrier. The seller must nonetheless contract for carriage of the goods from delivery to the agreed destination. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Any doubt here? CIP? So from CP to CPT to CAP, only insurance is added. Remaining all things are same. Export formalities, import formalities, delivery, the transfer of risk, everything is same. Only in addition to that, he is also, in addition of contracting carriage, he will also be paying insurance. He will also be contracting for insurance. Yeah. Now, there is something else. Maybe you can explore what type of insurance. Maybe some of you are aware, right? ICC clauses A, B, C, whether it is a minimum insurance, like what percent maximum insurance, what to be covered, what not to be covered, that we will discuss later. Okay. Now, coming on to the D terms, DAP, delivered at place. Okay. So until now, all the incoterms delivery was happening somewhere here only. Okay. First carrier, when the goods are handed over to first carrier, the delivery was happening. But now, if you see for D terms, the delivery is not happening here. Delivery is happening here. Delivery is happening at name place of destination. So whenever we are using DAP, we should ensure that DAP applicant's warehouse, something like that. Inside name place of destination. Okay. Now see the cost bar and risk bar, and then documentation bar. So let's read now. And also you also take a note of the consignment, whether it is loaded, unloaded, So now we are reading DAP. Delivered at place means the seller delivers the goods and transfer risk to the buyer when the goods are placed at the disposal of the buyer. Okay. So when the goods are placed at the disposal of the buyer And arriving means of transport. Arriving means of transport. Blue color means like the sellers. Arriving means of transport arranged by seller. Ready for unloading at the name place of destination or agreed point within that place. If such point is agreed, either it could be this point or it could be some other point somewhere here at the place of destination. Seller bears all risk involved in bringing the goods to the named place of destination or to the agreed point within that place. This incoterm rule, therefore, delivery and arrival port of destination is same. Yeah. So here delivery is happening when they are ready for unloading at the place of destination. Okay. So whatever cost from this point to this point and whatever risk, from this point to this point, it is by the seller. Okay. And only point here you have to remember is under this incoterm, the seller need not unload. Okay. This is applicant's importer's obligation to unload. Again, you have to remember another thing under DAP, export formalities on account of exporter and import formalities on account of importer. Yeah. This is the place the delivery is said to happen. Okay. Now, so after DAP, we have DPU. Delivered at place. Yeah. Somebody was talking?
Yes, Sunil. I was asking one thing. Ready to deliver means what? So unloading from truck.
Yeah, ready to deliver means seller means like he's taking his truck and he's leaving at his disposal.
Living means what? Is it
The
unloading?
truck will go and stand there, and the importer have to arrange for unloading. Yeah.
Risk will be bear by importer at that time, right?
If something happens at the time of unloading, that is by importer. If some damage happens while unloading, it is for importer.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Okay. So now we are at DPU, delivered at place unloaded. Okay. So the only difference between DAP and DPU is here seller have to unload it here. Okay. So the remaining all same. Export formalities by exporter, import formalities by importer. Okay. So once the goods are unloaded at the premises, at the named place of destination, the seller said to have delivered. And at this point, risk transfers from this party to another party. Yeah. Now, delivered at place unloaded means the seller delivers the goods and transfers to the buyer when the goods, once unloaded from the arriving means of transport, are placed at the disposal of the buyer at the named place of destination or at agreed point within that place if any such point is agreed. So the delivery is happening here. Okay. Now, the seller bears all risks involved in bringing the goods to the unloading and unloading them at the named place of destination. Yeah. So this is where delivery happens. This is where the risk transfers. Until this point, the risk and responsibilities of seller to bring the goods in sound condition. Okay. Now, DDP. Okay. So DDP, if you notice here, again, it is not unloaded, similar to DAP, right? Only one difference what you can note is DDP means delivery duty paid. And again, insert name place of destination. Same for all D terms, it is insert name place of destination. Only thing is here, export formalities, of course, until now we are reading except exports, we are reading on account of exporter. But here, export formalities and import formalities both are on account of the exporter. That is why it says delivery duty paid. duty related documents will be there. No? So that is also obligation of the seller or exporter. Now, so delivery duty paid means the seller delivers goods to the buyer when the goods are placed at the disposal of the buyer, similar to DAP, cleared from import. This is one additional point. So here, import clearance also done by exporter. It is quietly opposite to exports, because exports was giving least obligation to the seller. DDP is giving least obligation to the buyer, right? So when the goods are placed at the disposal of the buyer, cleared for import, and the arriving means of transport ready for unloading. Okay, they are not, the seller is not responsible for unloading. Unloading is by the buyer only. At the name place of destination or at the agreed point within that place, any such point is agreed at. The seller bears all risks involved in bringing the goods to the name place of destination or to the agreed point within that name place. Yeah. Okay. Any doubt so far? So far, we discussed 7 incoterms that can be used for any modes of transportation. Yeah. Now we have remaining 4 incoterms. They are meant for sea and inland waterway transport. First one is like FCA, like FAS, free alongside ship. If whenever you're using FAS, it should always be inside name port of shipment. Okay, name port of shipment means like exporter's place. Okay, now you see the cost, risk, and the documentation work. Now again, like, this is how it is. If it is gray means it is not loaded. It is not loaded on board. Okay, they are just placed across the vessel. So that is why it says free alongside the ship. Free alongside ship means the seller delivers the goods to the buyer when the goods are placed alongside the ship. Example, quay or barge, nominated by the buyer. F terms, it is freight collect. Freight collect means this has to be arranged by main freight has to be arranged by the buyer. So that is why when the goods are placed alongside the ship, nominated by the buyer at named port of shipment, or when the seller procures the goods already so delivered. So that means like, the shipment coming from one country to another country, and again, it is not loaded and it is moved to some different country. So even for that matter, like if the goods are procured this way, the goods have to be placed alongside the ship. Okay. Now, this is very important. Delivery happens here under FAS. When the goods are placed here, the delivery happens there. Okay. It could be here, and if there is a barge, or if there is a quay, the feeder vessel have to carry from here to here. If at all in such case, the delivery happens here. 2 places, either of these 2 places. And because big vessels cannot come to the port, so they have to be docked somewhere near the quay. Okay, if that is the point, the cost and risk, from this point to this point is also on account of seller. Okay. Now, mode of transport, this rule is to be used by sea or inland waterway transport, where the parties intended to deliver the goods by placing alongside the vessel. Thus, FAS rule is not appropriate. If at all they cannot deliver alongside the ship, then of course they cannot use FAS. They should be going for FCA. Okay. Thus, FCA is not appropriate where the goods are handed out to the carrier before they are alongside the vessel. Example, the goods are handed out to the carrier at the container terminal, where this is the case, the party should be considered using FCA rule rather than FAS. Okay. So you should be both the parties should be knowing like what is their capacity to until carry the goods until that place. If they cannot place alongside the ship, then FAS, they can hand it over to the carrier. Accordingly they can decide on incoterms. So this information should be with the applicant, and this information also should be with LC issuing department. They cannot simply, if they cannot misuse the incoterms. They should be suggesting appropriate incoterms. Okay, FAS. Now FAS, you know, FOB is very easy. Okay, free on board. Again, free on board also insert name port of shipment. Okay, similar to FCA, it is also name port of shipment. Again, export formalities by exporter, import formalities by importer. In earlier cases, goods were placed alongside the ship. That is why it was FAS, free alongside ship. It is free on board. Okay, now the goods are onboarded. So delivery and risk. Free on board means the seller delivered to the goods to the buyer on board the vessel nominated by the buyer. However, the vessel again nominated by the buyer, it is freight, FOB and freight collect at the name port of shipment, or procures the goods already so delivered. Only thing is here, only distinguishing point between FAS and FOB is the delivery happens here once the goods are on board, as per the title of the incoterm, free on board. The risk of loss or damage to the goods transfers and the goods are on board the vessel, and the buyer bears all cost from that moment onwards. Okay, here the delivery happens. Yeah. Now we have something called like CPT. CPT is meant for all. Now CFR meant for only waterway transport. Similar concept. Here CFR insert name port of destination. Okay, it was name port of shipment. Here it is CPT, name port of destination. Again, C terms, freight is paid by the seller, freight prepaid. Okay, the only distinguishing point between CFR and FOB, the delivery also, in both the cases, the delivery happens when the goods are onboarded. Okay, but only thing is cost until the name port of destination, C terms. That is the only differentiating point between FOB and CFR. Cost and freight means the seller delivers to the goods the buyer on board the vessel. If you remember, that is also on board the vessel, or procures the goods already so delivered. However, in both the cases, the delivery happens at this point, but cost until this point. The risk of loss or damage to the good transfers when the goods are on board the vessel, such that seller is taken to have performed its obligation to deliver the goods, whether or not the good actually arrive at their destination in sound condition, in stated quantity, or indeed at all. In CFR, seller owes no obligation to the buyer to purchase insurance cover. The buyer would be well advised, therefore, to purchase some cover for itself. Yeah, because CFR. Any doubt CFR? Now, CIF. Only distinguishing between CFR and CIF is insurance. Okay, insurance until the place of port of destination. Delivery happens when the goods are onboarded. Again, it is C term, freight prepaid. The main carriage have to be borne by the seller itself. And the risk transfers here and import formalities by importer and export formalities by exporter. Sorry, export formalities by exporter and import. So delivery and risk. Cost, insurance, and freight means the seller delivers to the goods the buyer on board the vessel. Similar, FOB and CFR on board the vessel, or procures the goods already so delivered. So delivery happens here. The risk or loss of damage to the good transfers and the goods are on board the vessel. Okay, on board the vessel, such that seller is taken to have performed its obligation to deliver the goods, whether or not the good actually arrives at the destination in sound condition, in stated quantity, or indeed at all. Because delivery happens when the goods are on board. Okay, now we're talking about insurance. The seller must also contract, because CIF, right? The seller must also contract for insurance cover against the buyer's risk or risk of or damage to the goods from the port of shipment to at least the port of destination. This may cause difficulty when destination country requires insurance cover to be purchased locally. In this case, parties should consider selling and buying under CFR. So here, however, like CIF, we know it. CIF means like the seller have to arrange insurance until the first destination. But the claim, if damage happens at other part, the claiming agency should be there, at the place of import. So in case there are no such things, such arrangements from the insurance company, then it is better to go with CFR. Okay, this is one important point. The buyer should also note that under Incoterm C&F, Incoterms 2020 rule, the seller required to obtain limited insurance cover complying with ICC or similar class rather than the most extensive cover under ICCA. It is, however, still open to the parties to agree on higher level of cover. Okay, if at all Incoterm is C&F, the seller should arrange at least minimum cover. Minimum cover means ICCC. There are 3 covers: Institute Cargo Class A, B, C. A is the one covers most of the things. A is the minimum one. If it is a CIF, the buyer should be well aware that he is going to cover only minimum risk. The cover is taken only minimum risk. Okay. Now, if under LC, Incoterm is CIF, then only minimum cover. If at all the buyer wants maximum cover, then buyer should specifically state, in the LC insurance document, and then you want maximum cover. Otherwise, because maximum cover means like the exporter will be paying more premium. Okay, this point you should note. Yeah. So we discussed 4 from waterway transport document: FOB, FAS, FOB, CFR, and CIF. Yeah. I want to share something else. Yeah. Like I said, no, with each Incoterm, obligation cost increases for seller. I said, like if it is X works, if the selected Incoterms X works means because he doesn't need even to make export packing. All he has to do is he has to pack it and make it at the disposable for collecting vehicle. So here this invoice looks like this only because he is going to bill for only merchandise, whatever shipment. Like if shipment is 20,000 means it is only 20,000. X works. It is very plain because rest all is taken care by the buyer. Now FOB. If that term says the term is FOB, see, merchandise total 20,000 is there, and then export packing, it is added. It was not there in XWorks. Export packing charges also there, and pre-carriage to the port. We discussed, right? Pre-carriage, main carriage, and on-carriage. So FOB, under FOB, freight collect, because main carriage is paid by the buyer. So at least the pre-carriage from the place of beneficiary's factory until the port, whatever pre-carriage expenses that is on account of, that has to be borne by the seller. So our the price looks like this, and then terminal handling charges. Okay, once it reaches there, because the risk, the delivery is said to have happened in free on board when the goods are onboarded. Okay, so there will be some terminal handling charges there. So those charges are also on account of FOB. Sorry, under FOB, those charges also on account of seller. No. CIF. Okay, then insurance obligation also added. So you have merchandise and you have export packing. Okay, and you have pre-carriage and you have terminal handling charges and you have main carriage charges because it is C terms. Okay, C terms freight prepaid. Prepaid means seller have to pay the freight. So here he has main carriage charges also. Okay, If you're reading it as CFR, we'll stop it here. Now we are reading it as CIF, insurance charges also. Okay, this is all the obligation of the seller. Now, further, delivered at place. Again, it is adding merchandise, export packing, pre-carriage to the port, terminal handling charges, main carriage, and their delivery. And insurance, although there is no obligation as per the incoterm, still, because he have to be secure, right? Because he's taking from all the way to here. So with each incoterm, the responsibility is increasing for seller. Yeah. Now. Okay. So any doubts now? Okay, and under FAS, where the delivery is happening? FAS incoterm. Someone?
In front of ship.
Outside
Name the place of.
alongside ship.
Name port.
No. I couldn't get you. Someone? A little louder, please. Where the delivery is happening?
Beside ship.
Yeah, when the goods are placed alongside the ship. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Under CFR, where the delivery is happening? CFR.
On board the vessel.
On board.
CIF.
Yes, it's saying on board the
CIF.
vessel.
On board
On
value.
board
And
the vessel.
FOB.
On board the vessel.
Yeah. See, in all the cases, import formalities by importer and export formalities by exporter. Okay, now under DDP, where the delivery is happening? DDP.
At buyer's place.
Yeah, when the goods are
Buy-
made at the
buyer
disposal of the
premises.
buyer. Under DDP, is seller required to unload?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
No.
Sir, no.
No. So import formalities under DDP? Import formalities
By seller.
by seller only. Yeah. So under DPU, where the delivery is happening?
Buyer's place unloaded.
Buyer's place unloaded. As the name suggests, delivered at place unloaded. So where the delivery is happening in DAP?
Buyer's place.
Buyer's place
Without unloading.
without unloading, just making it at the disposal of the buyer. Okay, FCA, where the delivery happens?
Carrier.
FCA.
First carrier.
First carrier.
Yes.
First carrier. If the place is beneficiary's premises, only seller have to load it. Okay. If it is second place, seller has to arrange for the carriage until the name second place. If it is the second place, he doesn't have to unload it. Okay. Only incoterm, arranging export formalities, buyer.
Export.
Only incoterm. Export formalities also on account of buyer.
DDP.
X works.
X works. Only incoterm, import formalities also on account of seller.
TDP.
Okay. Only incoterms, seller obligation to unload.
DPU.
Unload. TPU. Correct. Yeah. So, I suggest you guys to go through the book I shared in the WhatsApp group. You don't have to go in detail. You just go through whatever I discussed today. You can say you are prepared when you can interpret from the chart itself. Yeah. So C terms and D terms of freight on whose account? C terms and D terms. Who is being the
Seller.
freight? Main freight.
Sunil, actually, for me, I'm not able to open that PDF file. Anybody else
Okay.
not able to open?
Okay. Can someone else try, please? Can someone else try check whether the PDF opens?
I can able to open.
PDF in WhatsApp?
WhatsApp group I shared, yes.
Yeah, it is. I can open.
Okay. Who is this? Cannot open? Chetan?
Yeah, Shankar here.
Shankar, okay,
Mine is
Shankar.
showing as corrupted or damaged.
Okay. Is it possible to share to your email ID, Shankar? File?
Yeah, it's okay.
Just try that. Just try sharing from email and open. If doesn't open, I'll share you by email.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll try
Okay. Yeah. Anything we want to discuss on incoterms today?
Oh, you were asking questions.
I think like main objective is when you can understand the incoterms from this chart. That is, that is where you prepared. Like you know each and every incoterms. And there is something else also. Let me. Okay. I'm going to share one more file. Okay, I'm going to share one more file. Before going through that file, I want you to go through this file only, ICC file. But I have prepared some refresher also. That you can access it later. Okay, not that one. Copy of incoterms. Yeah, there is one more thing I prepared. So briefly, whatever we discussed, right? X works and the way the delivery happens. Yeah. So there are some questions also. This I will share it later. Before that, I want you to go through from ICC resource only. Yeah.
Sunil, this material can you share? The one which we referred to.
Yeah. I'll share them. I'll share them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll catch up tomorrow. Just